6 in the Blue Chumash Double Torah portion, Tazria-Metzora. I'd like to cover two topics today, which connect to a very special element of what today is all about. Today is the 28th day of Nisan.
Dan, the guy says it's not working.
Well, now it is. I didn't go live yet. Today's the 28th day of Nisan, a day which is revered in the Chabad calendar because in 1992, it was 1992, on this date, no, 1991, on this date, the Rabbi said, I did everything that I can to bring Mashiach. Now, it's in your hands. Tut alts was kent, do everything that you can to bring Mashiach now. That's what the Rabbi said. And this message has haunted Hasidim for the past 31 years, 32 years. As we recall on this day what the Rabbi said, and 32 years later, we're obviously...
How soon before he passed? Or
it was less than a year. Less than a year before his stroke.
Before his stroke.
His stroke was Erev Pesach,
Oh, yeah.
a year later. But the Rebbe passed 3 years later, 1994. Yet, many Hasidim feel that we have failed. Obviously, Mashiach is not here. I am going to disagree with that message today.
Yeah, you've already said that it's a process, and we're already in the process.
But today we're going to discover that within the weekly Torah portion. Okay? So let's begin on page 676, where the Torah begins with... admittedly, this is a rough Torah portion. This one is all about skin. It's about dermatology and permits for construction.
Things they don't apply.
What?
You say don't happen today because they're not physical; they're spiritual.
Right, spiritual maladies. But the way,
the cleansing of the
I'm not going to get into the tzaras this morning. I'm not going to get into the plague of tzaras, which is often mistranslated as leprosy. I wonder if they translate it here as well. Leprosy is a medical disease. Tzaras is a spiritual disease which is brought upon through, amongst several other sins, it's brought about through lashon hara, speaking badly about another person for no apparent reason.
What, several sins? It's not just lashon hara?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know. I thought it was just lashon hara.
Nope. Murder, a bunch of sins. About 7 of them. I learned it the other day. I forget what it was. Rashi brings down lashon hara, so that's why it's most famous. But when you try to bring a schism between two people by speaking badly about someone to another, then you get your just desserts. Then God gives you tzaras, which forces you into quarantine to separate you from your people.
But this is not only about speaking badly; it's speaking at all about the third person.
Yeah, lashon hara with all of its unique and interesting applications. I'm not going to talk about that today. I want to talk about a topic at the very beginning of today's Torah portion. Let's take a look at page 677. God spoke to Moshe saying, "Speak to the children of the Israelites, saying, if a woman miscarries, even a dissolved fetus, or gives birth to a male child, she becomes ritually defiled for 7 days." I'm reading only the bold letters. She becomes defiled to the same degree as during the days of a menstrual flow. On the 8th day after the birth of a viable boy, the flesh of his foreskin must be circumcised. Why? Do we learn the mitzvah of bris milah over here? It's interesting. My son Shmulik had his birthday this week on Sunday, turned 2. And he had his bris on this parsha, on this parsha, on this reading. I think it was a Sunday when we read this aliyah 2 years ago, the mitzvah of bris. Yep. And the question is, why does God need us to make a bris?
To keep the covenant.
There's a whole movement about anti-circumcision. Of all the world's problems, this ranks as top 3.
Jews pick on
The world is turning.
What?
It's done for health reasons.
No. There's all these movements about people that are anti-circumcision. They want to ban circumcision in certain countries.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the same ones who want to
Ban slaughter.
Slaughter, yeah.
Right.
Because it's a Jewish thing, so.
Well, it's an Arab thing too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The Arabs also do bris
No, my point is
Muslims do
at 13 years old. Yeah.
big group of people, not just.
Not all Muslims. I don't know which Muslims, but certain Muslims, at least some Muslims, certainly some Muslims do the bris at the age of 13. Now, it's just interesting because this thesis that I'm developing is that anti-Semitism is not about the Jews. It's about Judaism.
That I didn't get. So if you can just a little bit elaborate on that.
If anti-Semitism was about Jews, then what would happen when Jews converted to Christianity or Islam, or if they stopped being Jewish? No.
Then they could be.
If they were no longer Jews.
But we know that that's not the case, both in the.
We know that's not the case.
Yeah.
Right? Anti-Semitism, if you read the writings of anti-Semites, it's about Judaism. I mean, Hitler wrote this explicitly. He said he hates the Jews because of the curse of consciousness that they brought to the conscience that they brought to the world. He speaks specifically about the Ten Commandments.
But the murder is against people.
Yeah, because they're trying to root out Judaism from the world.
Right. I mean, if he just hated the Jewish people, if he hated the idea of Jewishness, he could have said you have to convert. I'm not going to kill you, but convert, become a Christian. But he didn't. He wanted to get rid of the Jewish people.
No, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that
you can use Hitler as an example.
it's a fine line. Look, it really is a fine line. It's really topic of a big class of its own. But I just want to mention, look, this is not my own thesis. This particular point. I mean, look, I came to this conclusion through my own readings. Telushkin writes about this, and Prager writes about this in their books. Right? It's just very, very interesting to see.
Class about this?
Yeah, I'm writing a book about it. You'll get to it. We'll get to it. Absolutely. We'll get to it. Don't worry.
After he hits bestseller status.
That's it.
But yeah, 10 million copies is the goal in this next one. So why am I saying this? Because why would they ban ritual slaughter? Why would they ban bris? Because they're trying to ban Jewish life. They're not trying to kill. It's not a hatred against the Jews. It's a hatred against Judaism. And I'll give you a quick example. The Talmud says that what is the reason for anti-Semitism? I've said this many times before, because of Mount Sinai. You know what Sinai means in Hebrew? What's Sinai in Hebrew?
Oh,
Hate.
Yeah.
Why is it called Sinai, says the Talmud? Because Sinai is like Sinai. Sinai and hatred is the same word,
Right.
Same sound. Why? Because when we got the Torah, it caused hatred to descend upon the nations. When God chose one kid from the rest to give them the Torah, it caused the other ones to be jealous. So they're jealous not of the Jews, or they're jealous of the Jews because of the Torah, right? It's very, very interesting. It's a very delicate, subtle, important conversation.
Half an hour.
You can spend a day talking about this. We're really going to develop it, but let's keep focused on where we're going with this.
What are you doing
So-
next Tuesday?
So the bris was some people try to ban the bris. I believe potentially it's an act of anti-Semitism. How else could you explain it? Mind your own business. What's your problem? Why do you need to worry about someone else's religious convictions? You have a problem with me having a relationship with my God? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, because they don't want.
But look, some of these people are nuts. The reason they want to ban it, the express reason is, they say it causes unnecessary pain to a child. It's these same people who want to give birth in a dark room in a bathtub because they think that it's an easier process.
Okay, so if you're so worried about the pain of the child,
100,000 years of giving birth suddenly, with children being born in a forest in the harshest conditions and surviving, but now they want to do it in the dark.
Or a
room.
comparison to Africa, where it's like a form of, I guess, mutilation, what they do to
the female mutilation, yeah. Okay, let's just keep focusing on the bris. So why does God need us to do a bris? Why does God want us to do a bris? Remember, the word bris does not mean a circumcision. A bris is not a surgery. A bris is a covenant. It's a covenant with God. You're making a pact, a deal, an unbreakable deal with the master of the universe that we will not be able to ever break. Okay. Now, why does God need us to have a bris? Moses was born already brised. Certain righteous people were born already bris. They were born perfect. But why does God make us born? Why does He allow us to be born without a bris? If He wants you to have a bris, then He would give me a bris. It's like the guy that says, if God didn't want me to steal, then why would He have left the cash register open? If God didn't want me to commit the sin with that woman, then why would He have created such feelings within me? Right?
Yeah. Actually, it's even bigger question because we're not allowed to cut our flesh or make any incisions. So why this one incision?
Right. So right here lies, there's a certain convenience fallacy which we need to dispel. There's a myth of convenience which we need to put to rest here today.
Yeah, the ones who want to do it in the hospital.
No, there's a convenience factor which says people want to only do what's comfortable for themselves. Help me out here. People only want to do what's comfortable with themselves. They say, I don't want to lay tefillin, Rabbi, because I'm not used to it. I'm not comfortable with it. Who asked you if you're comfortable with it? What's the difference if you're comfortable with it or not? People love to do what they're comfortable with, and they're uncomfortable. They don't want to do what they're uncomfortable with, right? So they say, look, I'm not going to walk the shul because it's so hard. It's hard. What's wrong with hard? Right? When you make money, is it easy or is it hard? You do what you have to do to reach the places you need to be, right? So this notion that I only do what's comfortable for me. We live in this instant generation, instant baby formula, websites. If it takes more than 5 seconds to load, then I'm losing my patience, right? We live in this very convenient generation. But what the bris is coming to teach us is that God put us into a world to work. Adam la'amal yulad, says the verse. Man was born to toil. You were placed into this world to sweat. You were not placed into this world as some sort of a retirement home. We were placed here in order to work. What specifically were we placed to do? I want to show you something else. There's another beautiful verse.
That's where the phrase "Shvertzazani" comes from.
As a Shvertzazani, it's difficult to be a Jew, but in which context is that recited, Rob?
Actually, you already developed this one. We all have to work. Your choice is just, do you work at Torah or do you work at
I drove that point home from a different angle, exactly the same point. I just want you to turn to page 10 a second. Page 10.
10?
Page 10. This is the account of creation. Page 10. Well, page 10 in the Chumash. It's the account of creation. This is actually the 6th day of creation, an idea which is brought down on, when we quote this verse in our Kiddush every Friday night, right? So go to page 10, second last line. I'm going to translate. And the work of heaven and earth and all their legions were completed. On the 7th day, God finished the work that He did. And He rested on the 7th day from all the work that He did. Over the page, number 12. And God blessed the 7th day and He sanctified it. Because on that day He rested from all of His work, that Elohim created la'asais to do.
Yeah.
That last word, la'asais, makes no sense. One more time, I'm going to read that last verse. On page 12, and God blessed the 7th day, and He sanctified it, because on that day, God rested from all the work that He created to do. Why does it say to do? Says to do.
Yeah,
Why does it add the word to do?
Translation here is not that good.
Yes, you can't translate it. I had to give the original.
Yeah.
So why does it say lasis? Why do we have an extra word lasis? Because God finished the work to do. Hello, what does that mean? It's like saying. Thank you for giving me the milk.
Very awkward.
More. It's like awkward phrasing. It's like He rested because He had finished all of His work to do. Like, what do you mean to do? There's still more work to do? And the answer is yes, there's more work to do.
La'asot. Yeah, la'asot is to do in the future.
Right, in the future, exactly. So the idea here is, within the subtle word here, the subtle redundancy lies the messaging that God created an unfinished world for us to finish the job. For starters, for example, He created a world with raw wheat so we can make bread. He created a world of building materials so we can build homes and buildings. He created a world of raw diamonds so we can polish them into beautiful jewelry. He created a world of unfinished finished of imperfection so we can perfect it. He did 99% of the work so we can do the last 1%. He created our beautiful bodies so that we can perfect them with the bris. Yes.
But what would have been the difference, say, if Chabad, Eve wouldn't have ate the apple and passed it to Adam?
Yeah.
What would the world then be like? Would it be the same as what you're saying? In other words, because they've sinned, we went on another trajectory.
Yeah.
As a result of that.
This, by the way, happened before the sin of
right.
knowledge.
So it's almost like predestined. That
Yes, I agree with you.
But almost the apple is like it was going to happen.
King David in the book of Psalms writes, Nora alila al bnei adam. An awesome treachery was plotted against Adam. That Adam was framed. He was supposed to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge in order to plunge the world into the state of darkness for us to turn on the lights through the bringing of the Mashiach.
So it's going to happen one way or another.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back to the point here. We were placed into a world in order to work. We were placed into this world in order to struggle our way to perfection. This is a major theme of Tanya. Tanya tells us that talks about the tzaddik, the rasha, the beinoni, right? The beinoni is the one that has his internal struggle between his evil, between his good, between his godly soul and his animal soul, constantly in struggle. But he can't ever vanquish the animal soul. He can only what's the word? He can only keep it at bay, but he can't ever transform it. So the Alter Rebbe asked the question: Why was he created to struggle? What's the purpose? It seems almost sadistic.
What's the purpose of the struggle?
Yeah.
It's to have a relationship.
The struggle itself is what gives Hashem the most tremendous nachas. That's what the Alter Rebbe says.
To appreciate.
The Alter Rebbe develops that theme even further. The Alter Rebbe, quoting from the Zohar there, he says in the Tanya, he quotes from the Zohar. He says that each time we curb our desire for God, we unleash an infinite light throughout the universe. That's what it says. The Alter Rebbe develops that theme that if I think I mentioned this yesterday. I said to my kids that life isn't fair. I said that yesterday, right? Life isn't fair because we maintain this fallacy through the rest of our lives, where we the whole doctrine of the evil eye. Why does anybody have an evil eye? Because why does he have and I don't have? Right? That's the whole idea of the evil eye is a prayer against someone else. That's not your business. Not only it's not your business, it's not your purpose. It's not your mission. You don't need the Mercedes-Benz. That's why you don't have it. Right? You don't need the big, beautiful home.
You gotta let go of the Mercedes. Pick another car. I'm throwing
It's
the
too
car.
personal.
I'm getting rid of it today.
You know what that means? So
we're both getting rid of it.
If you get a Trabant, let me know.
okay,
That's
so
why I'm going to the shop because my air condition broke.
the Alter Rebbe develops this idea to say that if you've experienced and identified the dysfunction in your life, mazel tov. That's what you are sent to this world to fix. That's what you're sent to this world to fix. So what? You discovered that your mother was abusive. So you figured out that somebody molested you. God forbid, I'm not condoning any such behavior. God forbid, nobody should ever experience such a thing. Please don't misinterpret my words.
Our point is the reaction.
Yes, the reaction. If it happened, ex post facto.
Yeah.
Right? If it happened that somebody stole money from you, right? Or somebody gave you bad advice and you descended into a horrible situation. You maybe had a bad marriage or a horrible divorce, something, right?
That's a good point to remember for the Holocaust explanation. That was the Viktor Frankl thing. All we can control in that situation
is our reaction. Right. So when we come in with this approach, we say, okay, so life isn't fair. If we were sent to this world to retire and relax, then you have every right to complain. Why does he get the penthouse and I get the basement? Why does he have the ocean view and I get the garbage truck view? Okay, I get it. But since you weren't sent to this world in order to vacation, you were sent to this world on a mission. It's like a soldier complaining, why does he get the window seat and I get the aisle, right? Because his training is in the window and your training is in the aisle. That's why. This is not a scenic tour of Russia, of Ukraine, right? You're here to shoot bullets, so focus on what you're supposed to do, right? He's driving and you're shooting, not the other way around, right? When we take that approach, that we're here on a mission, then we learn to accept the bad things that happen to us as our purpose, as our mission. And I want to develop this theme one step further in a beautiful idea that develops in the Parsha, in the second Parsha. The second Parsha Metzora, exactly. Here, let's see. This next idea is talking about, no, actually, I think it's earlier. It's here, page 697. We're talking about Saras. Saras is this disease that affects either clothing, skin, or homes, right? In each case, whenever it appears, you have to quarantine or destroy the item. You have to quarantine the person, quarantine the clothing or the home, or destroy it eventually if it persists, right? So without getting into the nuances of this idea, let's take a look at page 697, middle of the page. This is the second portion of today's Torah portion. When you enter the land of Canaan, which I'm giving you as a possession, you will, now we're doing the commentary, right? You will dispossess the nations who presently occupy the land and be able to inhabit the homes that they inhabit now. Of these nations, the Amorites in particular are fully aware of God's promise to Abraham that you will dispossess them. But since in that very promise God stated that their dispossession will be a punishment for their sins, they also cherish the hope that God will likewise someday punish you for your sins and exile you from the land, at which time they will be free to repossess it and move back into their homes. Thus, some of them have been stashing their gold in the walls of their houses ever since you left Egypt. Therefore, do not fret when I place a Tzaras legion upon a house in the land of your possession. For even if on that account you are forced to demolish your house, you will thereby reveal these hidden treasures and gain considerable wealth. Now, what we just read was incredible, because the verse in the original says, if you get a legion on your home, you got to break it down. That's what it says in the original verse, right? When you come to the land of Israel, of Canaan, which I'm giving you as an inheritance, and I will place a Tzaras legion on your home, right? Then the person, I'm just going to translate the original. The person, the homeowner comes to the priest to say, I think I see a legion in my home. The priest says, empty the house. And he comes in, and he comes to see the house, and he sees the legion, and he declares it if it is a certain shade, a certain color, right? He leaves the house, and he closes the house for 7 days, comes back after 7 days, and if the legion has if the legion has spread on the walls of the house, then they have to remove those bricks in which the legion has appeared. They should destroy those bricks, or replace them with new bricks, right? But if the legion has spread even into the new bricks, right, then the priest comes a third time, and you got to destroy the home, right? Okay, that's what it says in the verse, right? I mean, this is awful. You just built your gorgeous new country club house, right? Can you imagine? You just spent $3 million on your new house, right? Pool and all, the whole dream deck, the whole thing, right? And now you wake up one merry morning and you see a blotch on the wall. Now you can't live in the house for 7 days. You got to break out those bricks. You're right where the AC was, right? Now then, that's going to be a huge problem. Eventually, you're going to tear down the whole house. This is tragic. Tragic. How unfair. But the commentary, which we just read, points out that actually this is a blessing in disguise. Why is it a blessing in disguise? Because the home that you're destroying is where the gold lies, right? Because they moved into the homes of the Amorites that they used to live there before the people conquered the land. So it turns out, the Rebbe's, the commentaries here are pointing out that don't feel bad about the bad things that happen to you, because ultimately they can end up good. Like I always say, if it's not good, everything will be good in the end. If it's not good, it means it's not the end, right?
It's the silver lining behind every cloud.
Right. So the idea here is, and I want to connect it to the idea of the bris. You were placed here in this world to struggle, to perfect an imperfect world, a world that was deliberately created imperfect, so that you can fix it. When you realize your imperfections, they might be daunting. They might be horrible, like needing to tear down your house. It's not pretty. And you can scream bloody murder, kicking and screaming, and say, it's not fair, right? And maybe it's not fair. But the portion this week opens our eyes to realize that, there's a silver lining at the end of this cloud. See, if you're finding yourself in an impossible situation, why is this happening to me? Hold on strong. Hashem has a plan. Don't give up. Pray from the depths of your being that Hashem should illuminate your eyes to allow you to see. And indeed, the Alter Rebbe says in the letter Epistle 11 at the end of Tanya, he says, it's one of my favorite chapters of all time. Laskil Chabina, it's called, to infuse you with consciousness is the name of the epistle. He says that when you have trust in God, that there is no such thing as evil, that there is only good.
I remember I asked you that, and you like, Gil, stop.
We had that discussion a couple of years ago.
That's right. You got to learn this letter once a year. Once a month, you got to learn this letter. If you have that unshakable trust that it's all good, no evil descends from above, then that will actually lead to the hidden good being revealed. Just like in this story, where the hidden good, which is in the walls, the wealth, the millions, right, are hidden in the walls, will come to be revealed. So you got to stay on strong, keep the mission, stay the course, don't give up.
And this was a point that you said that the Rabbi said.
Oh, let me get back to the Rabbi. Let me get to the Rabbi. So the Rabbi said on today's date, he said, I've done everything I can, and now it's in your hands. So many Hasidim understand this to mean, okay, we failed. Mashiach's not here, right? Right? I say wrong. I say Mashiach is here. I say we're living in a time. Well, let me go back a minute. Mashiach is not just a person or a place. Mashiach is a state of awareness. I believe that all the people around this table and on our YouTube channel here now have all experienced enlightenment on some level. If you compare your Jewish experience, your spirituality, your relationship with God now to where it was a year ago, it's almost incomparable, right? It's almost incomparable. Why? Because your perception has changed. Your awareness, your consciousness has changed. What the Rebbe was saying was, look, I've done my part. I've brought Mashiach into my life. I'm fully conscious of the presence of Hashem in every single encounter. Like the Alter Rebbe before he passed, he said, I look at the ceiling of the beam of the ceiling, and I see not the wood, but I see the word of Avaya creating it at every moment. That is a Mashiach state of being. There's a beautiful story about Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Haradak, chassid of the Baal Shem Tov, I think he was. He was a colleague, almost a teacher of the Alter Rebbe. And he would open his window every morning to smell if Mashiach had come. And the question is asked, why didn't he open his window? Why couldn't he smell if Mashiach had come in his own room?
What does it smell like?
What does it smell like? Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart wrote in a famous case in 1964 about defining certain movies, whether they were pornographic or not. In a very, very interesting ruling, he said, I can't define it, but when you see it, you know that's it, right?
Exactly.
So I can't define it, but when it's it, you'll know it's it, right? So I can't tell what it smells like, but you'll know. So So why didn't he open the window? Couldn't he spell in his own room? The answer is
State of awareness.
the answer is Mashiach had already come in his own room. Mashiach had already come in his own apartment. It was
The question is
what's outside. And I believe that's what the Rabbi was telling us. I've done everything that I can means I have worked my life through reaching the state of higher consciousness, the state of awareness, to realize, again, we've learned this together as a community. We've learned the gates of trust, right? What's the gates of trust? We've learned, don't fear. Al tira. That's what we learned. The most oft repeated directive in all of Torah, more than any other directive in all of Torah, is don't be afraid. Think about it. What the Torah is telling us is that your fear is the opposite of your faith. If you can reach a state of never fearing, you've reached the state of bitachon, of trust.
But even if you do, the definition of Mashiach, like Aleinu, Bayom Hahui, Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, we haven't reached that. We have prophecies of Isaiah and all these other prophecies that describe what the days of Mashiach.
No, okay, very good. So,
and we don't have those.
well, here's what we have. Here's what we have. This is my understanding, okay, of the 28th day of Nisan. My understanding is like this. Is that the Rebbe brought Mashiach in his own mind. Have you brought Mashiach in your own mind? I believe that many of us have. The dawn is rising in the hearts and minds of so many members of our community. And the same thing in the hearts and minds of hundreds of other communities around the world.
Don't you need, like, almost like they say the entire world or the majority?
I'll give you an example. The video I sent you yesterday from the group studying V'yadaita Moskva out in Atlanta, Georgia. Right? They're learning the Maimer V'yadaita that we learned here. Right? They're learning it there. And in Vienna. And in Israel and Sfas. Right? What's happening is that our group is influencing the world. We wrote a book which we edited together. Remember, we edited it. And it's spreading consciousness throughout the world. People around the world are being influenced by these ideas, inspired, encouraged, uplifted, strengthened, empowered to be able to take on the struggles of daily life with strength and fortitude. I believe Mashiach is becoming real in their eyes, in their minds. The question is, what about the guy down the street from you? What about all your neighbors? Are they experiencing Mashiach yet? Not really. That's what the Rabbi was telling us. Do everything that you can, right? Spread the word as much as possible. Bring it out to as many people as possible. That's why we're doing this on YouTube. Oh, Julia's in Russia. Ooh, Julia. Interesting. Yeah, I've had a death experience. Everything changed after that. Amazing. So you were watching from Russia. Wow, that's amazing. Terry's in Atlanta. So if we see our bodies as our home for our souls, then any illness, surgery becomes a gift of refinement to reach the gold hidden within. Yes, yes, yes. Marty's here with us too. Everybody's here with us. Amazing. Beautiful.
So getting to the point where we get Mashiach, is it like YouTube subscribers? You need 1,000 YouTube subscribers?
Yeah.
So do we need, at what point, do we have to have every Jew before we get Mashiach?
That's
How
what I
about-
was
So-
saying.
so
It's
he-
not only Jews, it's
How
everybody.
about a majority?
So I'm going to tell you this. So I'm going to tell you this. The world is racing towards consciousness. And I'm going to just explain this over 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes. In every field, the world, I don't know if you saw an article that I wrote on Pesach. I sent an article, an essay about this exact idea. The world is racing towards consciousness. Think about it. We used to be groping in the darkness when it came to medicine, illness. But today we're like, oh, yeah, you have a problem? Let's take a blood test. Oh, it's this virus. Yeah, take this medicine, you'll be good. Right? That bacteria, take this whatever, this pill, and you'll be good. Right? So we're cracking the code on illness. We're solving blindness. We're solving deafness. We're solving all these medical problems. When it comes to international relations, politics, the world used to be like, okay, we're going to beat you up, we're going to kill you and plunder your wealth. But today it's like, oh, it's more civil. You know, the whole world is up in arms about Putin attacking Ukraine. Like, how can you do this? 100 years ago, that was like normal operating procedure. Putin's still stuck in the 1800s. He doesn't understand what everybody's upset about. Like, this is how we roll. This is how we dictators operate. I mean, the world, he doesn't understand the civilized world because he's still stuck in the 17th century, which is how everything worked. But today, it's like, what do you mean? We're civilized. We have mutual respect. We respect other people's lives and dignity and every man's right to exist. It's happening in scientific discovery. We're learning that everything that we thought that we knew about science is really not real, right? For example, for 2,000 years, Aristotle's views reigned supreme. Aristotle believed that the world always existed. And anybody who attacked that view was considered an idiot. All the rabbis for 2,000 years that attacked his view, and they all attacked Maimonides, everybody attacked the view of Aristotle, which was considered the gold standard that the world always existed. And God was some sort of a maintenance manager. He also believed in God, by the way, Aristotle, but only as like a superintendent. In 1914, I think it was 1914, when John Hubble and another scientist discovered this idea of, they introduced this idea of the Big Bang. Now the whole world believes in the Big Bang. We're coming to more clarity. We're realizing, the world has a beginning, which means the world has an end, which means God created. It puts things into perspective. To answer your question, Rob, I'm sorry for taking this long route to get your answer. Here's what I think. So along the same lines in literature too, in psychology, human psychology, they're cracking the code on unhappiness. When you learn about illnesses like codependency, which since time immemorial, people were unhappy without knowing why they were unhappy. But when you learn about the causes of codependency and its maintenance, how to maintain happiness, when you learn about the cutting edge research in how to maintain happy relationships, people are happier. When they learn how to handle their addictions, AA today's a big thing. So Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called The Tipping Point. Have you ever read that book? Amazing book. Tipping Point. He says all revolutions happen not when the majority reach, when the majority buy in, but when there's a tipping point of acceptance. So in other words, if there's let's say there's 10,000 Jews in Palm Beach Gardens, right? So we don't need to hit 10,000. We probably need to hit 3,000. Because if 1 in 3 is that conscious, look, I spend all my time learning Torah with people all day, every day. So when I learn Torah with influential people in the community, and they stand up in front of their crowds and they say, actually, no, there was actually a guy here. He was at some sort of a big meeting, a Jewish Federation meeting, and he set up something about Shabbos. No. He's like a huge philanthropist. And he said, no, we can't mess with Shabbos. It's holy. And everybody looked at him like he was crazy. But they were like, oh, yeah, Shabbos, because you can't argue with Mr. Philanthropist here, right? Then what happens is you reach a tipping point. As an influence, that's exactly what's happening. And when you have the social media influences standing up and showing values, what happens is that the world edges towards consciousness. And that's why I believe that what the Rebbe was saying to us is not that we failed. What the Rebbe was saying is that, look, guys, it's in your hands. Mashiach is not something which I can do. Mashiach is something that has to happen by the people. We have to all reach a state of awareness of godliness. But I can't put that in your head. Hashem did that for us at Mount Sinai when he came from above. And he made a revelation to us. But then he pulled back and he says, okay, I've shown you a preview, but now you've got to work towards it on your own. For the past 3,000 years, we're working on reaching that state of consciousness. And now we've come so far, from the dark ages, the Middle Ages. We're now in a state of enlightenment where we realize that it's perfectly okay to be scientific and religious at the same time. There's no conflict between good science and good Torah. There's no conflict.
Well, there's values between them, which makes all the difference. I've heard exactly that argument made very recently about artificial intelligence, and it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And the guy Page, who started Google, is one who said to Elon Musk, "What are you, a speciesist? Meaning what? You believe that humans should be superior to artificial intelligence? This is the crap that's going on now.
Almost
And we're
racist.
creating artificial intelligence, enabling it to make the decisions that the rest of us humans shouldn't have to do because artificial intelligence is superior to us. So we also have a God's particle, if you remember that one going on.
Higgs Bison.
We're right on the cutting edge of it. You could go to terrible, you could go to this, you could go to world destruction, or you could go to Mashiach.
Look, I believe that's going to end good. It's going to end good.
I think this artificial intelligence is like the Migdal Bavel.
Tower of Babel.
You know, I think humanity is trying to reach something to replace Hashem in artificial intelligence.
Oh, exactly.
And
It's
then-
never- but it's never gonna
there
happen.
will be a humongous
Exactly right.
tragedy.
This is the Tower
Will
of
be
Babel
fallen,
this day.
and then that's where humanity is going to make the next leap towards when you say Mashiach. And
Yeah, artificial intelligence is a
We have
tremendous
to-
leap towards consciousness. I mean, it's like decisions that will be made without human intervention in a major.
No.
It's almost
No?
like
I mean,
you
I
worship
really-
another God.
That's what they're afraid of.
There's a misconception that artificial intelligence will be able to have a conscience, will be able to mimic human behavior. It is still a machine. If you watch 60 Minutes this past week and they spoke to the head of Google with this new artificial intelligence Bard, at the end of the day, it, like you said, it has benefits that can be good or bad. For instance, in medicine, you put in the information and what it can derive, for doctors
Amazing.
is amazing. It
Of
can
course.
eliminate what would otherwise be days or weeks or months of
Undiagnosed, yeah.
Right. But, at the end of the day, there is a limit and it will coexist. It will coexist.
Yeah, I think
with
it's messianic.
religion.
I think the artificial intelligence is most certainly an expression, a giant leap towards a state of a world of consciousness. The Torah says, by the way, in the prophecies, it says your work will be done, and kings will be your assistants. In other words, we won't have to work much because we will be assisted, it says, by forces of great power.
My favorite is the breastplate, right? The breastplate
iPad?
that has a lot of lights and
Yeah.
will answer your questions. Sounds like the iPhone to me.
Amazing. Siri.
Right?
All right, folks, we got a mission cut out. Life is here. We're here not to retire. We're here to work. Don't be afraid. Don't be daunted by the daunting challenges. There's silver lining behind. Our ultimate goal is to bring Mashiach. That is a state of consciousness. It's one mind and heart at a time. And sometimes the most difficult clients are your own children and grandchildren. And some of the most easiest clients are your friends.
Actually, what
Are your friends. Influence your friends. Spread the love. Spread the light. Connect them to Chabad. Connect them to the Rabbi. Connect them to Torah. Share with them these videos. Let's have conversations. Let's have chaburas of Torah study. And as we do that, Torah is what's going to lead the charge to that state of consciousness. All right? Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated